A few days ago, on March 20th, Senator Blunt Rochester from Delaware spoke on the floor of the U.S. Senate. She was accompanied by a rendering of the document that allowed her formerly enslaved great-great-great-grandfather to vote in 19th century Georgia. Her address that day was about the Save America Act, a bill that had narrowly passed the House of Representatives last month and was now under consideration for a vote by the Senate.
It's my belief that our democracy is under attack, that there is a coordinated effort to undermine voting rights in America.
Believe it or not, there was a time in our country's history, check U.S. civics and history texts, that our elected officials were chosen by their electorate, tech speak for voting public. On a local level, that still appears to be the case. I have answered my door to meet some of the candidates, running for various city and county positions. Of course, the situation changes a bit as you proceed up the ladder to regional, state, and federal races. Redistricting of voter legislative maps happens on a regular basis. The Loyola Law School says redistricting is the way we change the districts that determine who represent us. That alone is not that troubling. In fact, redistricting is a way for voters to be properly represented in a country whose population changes in irregular ways on a continual basis. According to the website, fairdistrictspa.com, redistricting happens every 10 years after each U.S. census. Where it becomes worrisome is when redistricting is used as a tool for political parties to choose their electors. This is when redistricting becomes gerrymandering. The NAACP Legal Defense Fund defines gerrymandering as the manipulation or drawing of districts to advantage or disadvantage certain groups. This kind of ballot manipulation has been with us for many years. As of late, this kind of maneuvering has intensified. Earlier, Texas manipulated their electoral maps to disenfranchise Hispanic and African American voters. Texas had already been doing this for years to Black and Latino voters, the two groups that had been enjoying the largest population growth in that state. Black voters sued, and when Texas appealed to the Supreme Court, the court ruled in the state's favor, essentially giving them a get-out-of-jail-free card to enact racially discriminatory electoral maps. The latest effort along the lines of voter suppression is a rather curious bill titled the Save America Act. The bill's authors frame the proposed legislation as a voter ID measure to require American citizens to show documents like a passport or birth certificate to register to vote. The Brendan Center for Justice notes, the act would disenfranchise an estimated 21 million Americans who don't have access to those documents. The only reason why a Republican-controlled Congress would even consider making this into a law would be to stem the resistance to an unpopular president, as well as a wildly unpopular Congress from being impeached and removed, as well as having those congressional actors from being voted out of office. The bill passed the House of Representatives on February 11, 2026, by a narrow vote of 218 to 13. This bill aims to require documentary proof of U.S. citizenship, like a passport or birth certificate, to register to vote in federal elections and mandate strict photo ID at the polls. It's time now to reveal the situation as a bad news, good news proposition. The bad news is that a Republican-led House of Representatives has passed this despicable attempt at voter suppression, handing it over to the Senate. The good news is that Senate Democrats are not taking this bill lying down.
Senator Chuck Schumer said, "We all know why Donald Trump wants this bill. He is afraid Republicans will lose in November."
The bill is currently being debated on the Senate floor. If you want to be able to vote in the midterm election and can't get a hold of your birth certificate or passport, then call your senators and urge them to stop this terrible piece of legislation from passing. To stop this bill from becoming law, Democrats are currently relying on the Senate stall, the primary hurdle for any legislation that lacks a 60-vote supermajority. Because Democrats and some moderate Republicans oppose the bill, it does not have the 60 votes required to overcome a filibuster. Republicans are currently discussing using budget reconciliation, a process that only requires 51 votes, to bypass the filibuster. However, they must prove the bill has a direct impact on federal spending or revenue to qualify for this fast-track method. The most important thing I can impress up on you to do is call your congressperson. Use the congressional switchboard, 202-2024-3121. If you don't know your senator's name, look it up here. https www.senate.gov Senators W Index HTM. Ask them how they feel about the Save America Act. Tell them that you are not happy with the prospect of a government that chooses its voters, instead of having the voters choose them. One more thing to tell them. If they support this piece of legislation, you will not support them. You won't vote for them, but you will be more than happy to offer your full support to their political opponent. Of course, that may backfire, as the whole purpose of the SAVE Act is to keep the electorate under the control of those already in power.